Hello, today is October 27th, 2017. I'm meeting today with Mr. Chester Peak at his home in Windsor, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, Chester, or as you like to go by, Chet. Thank you for sitting down today to tell your story.
Yeah, whatever.
Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you were born, a little bit about your family.
Okay, I was born on Veterans Day, 11th of November, 1920, on a farm near Paulina, Iowa, the product of a romance between an old maid school teacher and an old bachelor farmer that finally found their mate, and I came along shortly thereafter. Had a typical childhood raised on a farm. It was depression, and that influences you.
That's one question I always like to ask your generation. Do you have much memory, and was your family much affected by the Great Depression?
Well, everybody was affected. My family was probably affected less than some because we were on a good farm. My grandfather owned several farms, so we were not poor, but nobody spent much money.
Right.
So in high school, I got 25 cents a week allowance.
Wow.
It didn't entertain girls very much. But I was fortunate. I went to a little country school where you get a tremendous education if it's a good teacher, and I did. And went to a good high school. My folks were both college graduates, so I was destined for college. I wanted to get off the farm because I had already figured out there's a lot of hard work involved in farming, so I went down to Iowa State College then in 1938.
Okay.
And it was a struggle at first because it came from a small town, small school, but it was fun too because I was on my own and had to make my grades, and the schoolwork wasn't that hard, but along with it, it was fun, except that at Iowa State at that time, there were 4,000 boys and 1,000 girls, and that gave you a lot of competition. And I had the odds stacked against me because I was 5'5" tall, and you really didn't want to date those 6 foot tall farm girls. Well, they were 6 foot, but some of them were pretty good size. But to my great good fortune, I met my future wife in the spring quarter system then, in the spring quarter, and we hit it off pretty good, and then the next fall we started to go what they called steady, and had a good time through college. Probably the big event was December 7th, 1941. And I can remember vividly, we were sitting I was in a fraternity, which was a good break for me. Three of us were sitting in our room, listening to radio, and we heard the announcement that the Japs had bombed Pearl Harbor, and we knew what it meant right away. I had a commercial flying license already. The government had a program where they took college kids and taught them to fly. It was really a disguised defense expenditure.
Well, do you think up to that point, could we see war on the horizon? Was there any, or was that just a total surprise?
Total surprise.
Yeah, okay.
And we were well you know, we weren't clear out in the boondocks.
Yeah.
We were educated. We were reading the paper, listening to the radio, WHO Des Moines, and yeah, I find it hard to believe how surprised we were.
Hmm.
And of course, it was a surprise because the war news had all been in Europe.
Right,
And suddenly
right, yeah.
it's in the Pacific. And so what it meant, I was going to go in the service. And again, fortunately, I I enlisted in cadet school, but not as a flyer. I really didn't want to that bad.
Really, yeah?
But there was a cadet program for engineering cadets who became aircraft maintenance officers, which was in charge of maintenance of the aircraft.
Was
And
that your degree in college? Was
it
engineering?
was, my degree was mechanical engineering,
Okay.
which I was going to get on the 5th of June, 42.
Oh,
Well, I had the problem of hoping that I could stay in school to graduate. If they called me,
yeah.
okay, I'd have to go. But by the time I enlisted or attempted or started the process of enlisting in the Air Force and took the physicals and filled this out and that, and then was assigned a class in cadet school, which was a June class in Chanute Field, Illinois. Was within 3 or 4 days of graduation ceremony, and I got my diploma
Oh, good.
without. So I had my degree, which was a good deal. Then I went off to cadet school. I was in cadet school at Rantoul, Illinois, for 5 months, and it was kind of a combination OCS and aircraft mechanics.
Okay.
And we were young engineering students, all of us, so we were a pretty sharp
Yeah.
bunch. It
Yeah.
wasn't too hard for us. And again, I was pretty fortunate. Graduated in October of 42. Sent to a replacement depot, and then right on to a bomb group that was forming in first Washington State and then Rapid City, South Dakota, where they were training, and which was not the smartest thing in the world because this is December by the time we get there. And it was so cold that we really you couldn't even start the airplane. But there we were. So we trained for 3 months in Rapid City, and then the air unit was alerted to go overseas, and they flew overseas in the southern route, which was
Okay.
unusual, and that took a while.
And just to refresh everybody, that went Brazil to the Azores.
That's correct, to the Azores,
Yeah.
and then to Natal, I forget what country, but Africa.
Africa, yeah.
And on up to England. And we only lost one airplane on the trip. It was my squadron commander. We didn't lose him. They had to ditch because they had engine trouble.
Let me back up before we get too far into your story. You guys said that you were listening to the radio December 7th and how you knew it was going to affect you. You had to me an added layer. You've got a steady girlfriend. I don't know if you guys were married at that point,
No.
or just still steady, but did you guys talk about your relationship and what that was going to do? I mean, what was the discussion with you and your wife?
I missed an important element there. The first thing I did when I heard this, I called Marian up and said, all bets are off. I won't be getting a job in industry. I'll be going in the service, and we don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's up in the air. but we had gone together a long time, and this was a disappointing event. But she happened to have a sister living in near Rantoul, Illinois, where I was in cadet school. So, and in cadet school, you were confined to the base for a month, but then you could get a 24-hour pass. So she comes out to visit her sister. I get my 24-hour pass. I see her again, and on that 24 hours, we decide to get married.
Wow.
We didn't get married that 24 hours, but the next one because you had to get papers and so forth. So we got married on the 18th of June. I hope I'm right there. So it isn't the 18th of June. We got married in the first, well, it would be the second 24-hour pass that I got out of cadet school. So, July 18th, okay, there we go.
42?
Yeah, and 42, and had 24, we didn't have even 24 hours together for a honeymoon at about 18, and I go back to the base, and she stayed for 2 or 3 weekends so I could get off. And then she went back, she had a job teaching, and I didn't know where I was going to be sent. I graduated, as I said, now the story goes back to, I graduated and went to, in 95th Bomb Group, went to Rapid City and trained there, and then started into the story of going overseas, but left. The wife was able to come out and visit me for almost 2 weeks at Rapid City, South Dakota. So we had, before I went overseas, we had maybe 3 weeks altogether.
Oh, jeez.
Looking at it objectively, what in the world are you thinking of? We did it.
Yeah, right.
And we were married 74 years very happily. So, we're never sorry. But I'm sympathetic with these young people sometimes.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, I go back to, we're going overseas. The ground echelon went over on the Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, okay.
Which was a great way to go over. And
well, how was that for, here's an Iowa farm boy going to sea. Did you get your sea legs, or how was that?
It was such a big boat that you weren't seasick.
Were you guys in convoys at that point, or was that fast enough to go by?
The good thing about both the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary were they were so fast. That they didn't use escorts. And the Queen Elizabeth was more or less designated to taking the 8th Air Force over to England. And we were the first group, or there were others too, but we were the first bunch of 8th Air Force that there was a small couple of groups went over in July of 42. And didn't do much, and then half of them went down to Africa for the African invasion. So the 8th Air Force was just starting to build up in May of 43 when our airplanes got there, and we got there via the Queen Elizabeth. There were 15,000 troops on it, and I heard they took more later. But as officers, it was a British boat, so boy, officers or something. And so we ate in the dining room with linen napkins.
Okay.
Enlisted men weren't quite so fortunate.
Yeah.
They're down in the hold with bunks, 6 or 8 high at
Right.
least.
Yeah. Right.
And the hot bunk system, they got the bunk 12 hours and somebody else got it 12 hours. But it was only 6 days, and we were in Greenock, Scotland. That's probably not the right town.
Yeah.
But and we were immediately on a train to East Anglia and got on near, well, I'll say it was about halfway between Ipswich and Norwich, which are the 2 big towns in East Anglia. And we were on one air base for about a month, and it wasn't finished, so we moved to another that was. That's a detail you don't need. And we were there the whole war.
Wow. What was it like? I don't know. I know many of your generation. I don't know if particularly your situation, but many of your generation during that time really didn't travel too far away from home. And now you kind of zigzagged all over the country. Now you're in England. What was that like as a 21, 22-year-old?
Well, I had traveled some. For instance, my mother had taken us to Washington D.C.
Okay.
one summer. So
Oh, wonderful.
it wasn't any
Okay.
big deal. It was kind of we were tourists when
Yeah.
we got to England,
Right.
because we went off, and I should tell my little bicycle story.
Oh, definitely. Please do.
We were still, the ground unit was in one place, and the air unit was training with another experienced bomb group. This would be May of 43. And so we're on our air base and in England, and never, like you say, farm boys. So the paymaster was going to go into the town of Woodbridge to get British money for the payroll. So we jump in the Jeep with him because we want to see. So we go in the little town of Woodbridge, and we're walking around the square, and I noticed I didn't see any cars. And I looked further, and I saw lots of bicycles. And I thought, if you're going to get around, if you can find a bicycle, I'll bet it'd be a good idea. So it's a true story that sounds unbelievable. We walk down a little side street. Here's a bicycle shop. We go in, and we asked the proprietor, do you have any bicycles for sale? And he reluctantly told us, yes, I've just got 2. And I said, I want one. How much? I didn't say how much, I want one. And 40 pounds, no, 10 pounds, $40. I had an English bicycle the whole war, and they were more valuable than it sounds like, because I rode that everywhere.
I'll be there.
If I went to London or went to Norwich, you put in the baggage car, and your bicycle went for, I don't know, 10 pence or something, and you went in the regular coach. But it was a huge advantage. Others got bicycles later, and they issued American bicycles, which were not nearly as useful because they had big tires. And but that's my bicycle.
Yeah,
story.
right.
Okay, I had transport, and the time, I'll summarize. We were there operationally roughly 2 years, and the first year we got beat up bad. We were losing the tour of missions. They had to fly 25 missions and then go home, and nobody
Made it.
You're losing 4 or 5 people out of 20 figured out.
Yeah.
But a few did go home, and then
How was that from the ground crew standpoint? Those guys coming back from a mission, looking up and seeing, oh, 20 took off this morning, and I'm counting 13 or something. That had to be hard on the.
Just get used to it. That's the way it was.
Oh boy.
You didn't, unless it was somebody you were buddy with or so. It just, I can't explain it very well,
Yeah,
but
right.
it just was part of the deal.
Did you would the air and the ground crews, would they interact at all
Oh,
much?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
you had
Oh,
friends
yeah.
up there then.
They, especially the air crew and the ground crew of their airplane.
Oh, so a ground crew would be specifically assigned to an airplane then?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yes, they would, by nature of where they parked, but it was assigned to an airplane, yeah. And they would feel it bad when, and it happened a lot. And,
Yeah.
but the other thing was, America by then was producing war material, like wasn't going out of style, and we always, if we lost a couple airplanes in my squadron, they would either come in later in the afternoon, 2 new airplanes, or the next morning.
Wow.
And so we always had a full complement of airplanes. The other thing, to speak to the number of airplanes, we went over, a squadron had 9 B-17s. A group had 36 plus 4 extras for the headquarters. In October, November, they changed that and doubled the number of B-17s in each squadron. So each squadron had 18. And it meant each crew chief, because we only had 9 crew chiefs for the maintenance, we just parked 2 airplanes together, and the crew chief had 2 airplanes. And it worked pretty well, because of the fact that if you lost an airplane, you didn't have to fix it. And that was the way it was the rest of the war. And of course, it's just doubled our effectiveness, because we had, instead of having 40 airplanes on the base, we had 80.
So during this time, the Americans would bomb during the day, the British at night. So did that mean you guys worked at night then? You primarily worked at night?
Yeah, you didn't, if there was, well, let's say there was an engine to change, that was a typical job. You'd work till it was done. Whatever maintenance that was required, this would be a little technical, but
Yeah, fine.
normally, first echelon maintenance was putting in gas and oil and pumping the
Okay.
tires.
Okay.
And second echelon was changing spark plugs and a little more maintenance. And then third, you'd be changing the whole engine. But we did all 3 right in the squadron because we could do it. And then we had a sub-depot with hangars that would do the more complicated maintenance. Like, we wouldn't fix an engine. If there's something wrong, we'd drop it off and put a new
Gotcha.
one on. They would take the engine and overhaul it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
So,
And what can you describe it? Some of the planes that came back. Some of the.
I've got pictures of them in
No, I guess we can. When we pull
Yeah,
those pictures
that-
out, we can
Yeah.
talk about that then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got, you grew up pretty fast because you'd get planes back with dead people in them.
Oh boy. Oh.
And wounded,
Mm.
but not that often. I mean, most of the time if it was shot up very bad, it didn't come back. But you got them, and it. I just described it as, well, that's the way it was.
Yeah, right. That's probably the best way to deal with that.
You know, we didn't like it, but we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Talk about life on the base, your sleeping conditions, the food, what you guys did on your time off, just a general, roughly day-to-day life on the base.
Well, we lived pretty well because we were at a permanent base. We slept in a bed every night. We had little stoves in our quarters. In fact, my assistant engineering officer and I had a room in a little Nissen hut, and we fixed it up a little, you know, like you do. And it was comfortable. We ate, the officers' mess was good food. 3 meals, except we'd have we were often, typically we would be up at 2 in the morning to get the planes ready. Then maybe we'd go back and sleep, or I had a cot in my office building that I just lay down on that, sleep some, so our sleep was interrupted a little, but not badly. But as I said, we lived pretty good because we had pretty good food. We got early on, we would take leaves to London. They'd give us a 3-day pass, and we'd go to London.
And would describe what you see. There was a lot of bomb damage still.
There was bomb damage, but I remember the things I was interested in. I wanted to see the stage shows, and I got to see, and I wish I could remember the names of some of the famous, but I can't right now.
Yeah, that's
but so tremendous stage shows.
Oh wow!
The London theater, and so we'd get time off and that way. Well, let's see what else.
Would you have with the local villages and England much interaction with the civilians?
Yes, yes. Every other week, the officers' club would put on a dance, and they'd send 6x6 trucks out to the little villages and around, and they'd park in the center, and they'd do that about 6 in the evening, I think. And the British girls knew when, or had been in, they found out, and they'd, each little village, why, there'd be 12, 14 British girls get on, and they'd come back to the officers' club, and we'd have a band, and they were usually kind of a seedy British band, old guys, you know, who wasn't any good one. But that was the officer club dance, and I think we had a buffet, a meal kind of, and boy, that's what the British girls wanted.
Oh,
They
sure.
were, especially the first 2 years, they just didn't have hardly enough to eat. But that was kind of the entertainment, and that, you know, we were young and they were young.
Yeah.
And that it was the mixing of the British women and the men. The officers, with some regularity, found girlfriends. The enlisted men found girlfriends and often got married. Why, I don't, the officers almost never did.
Hmm.
And because we were there 2 years, we had the chaplains were in charge of this getting married business, and were their task was to say, "No, wait a minute, you know, this is this a good idea?" But a number of enlisted men got married, and at the end of the war, they had several boats assigned to take these British women and their children, often, back to the States.
Huh.
And it was kind of a sad statistic, though, and you can't go by this being the way it always was, but just about half went back to England.
Really?
Yeah, the guys had, I know what they did, you know, they bragged about, well, you know, I have a lot of money in my, and in their hillbilly down in Kentucky, and so that was kind of a sad statistic to recite. But that was good entertainment, and people could have a real good time too.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, talking about wives and such, talk a little bit about communications back home with you and your wife and your family. I mean, in today's world, we get on the computer, or we got an instant message on the phone. What options did you have?
The options were very slim.
Yeah.
We could write a regular letter, which went airmail, and I wrote at least a letter a week, and that's what's the basis of this thing I'm writing here, some of them. And that's what we had. And my wife would write me about once a week, and I'd write her, and maybe I wouldn't get her letters, I'd get 3 or 4 at once or something. So it wasn't very close communication.
Well, and then added to that was you couldn't write much.
You couldn't write a thing.
Yeah, and were you responsible for your men going through their letters and auditing them?
Because the engineering, one of the lucky things about being an engineering officer, they kind of wanted you there. And we were segregated down on what we called the line.
Okay.
The perimeter track, and we weren't in the orderly room or anything.
Oh, okay.
We were down here. Vaguely, our work was not understood very well by anybody else, which was an advantage. And so we didn't do any of that. We didn't have any court-martials, any censoring mail, which was, now that I think of it, was a real advantage.
Yeah, it would have been tougher.
It would have been kind of a mess.
But for those that are watching this tape, all letters coming back to the States were censored by usually officers, and oftentimes they would black out or cut out whole sections.
I knew what
Right.
we could say, and I don't recall any of in the pile there. I don't recall anything blacked out, but I couldn't say much.
Yeah, right.
I'd just say today was a cold, rainy day, but it's warm in here, and I'm sitting writing this letter. You know, you don't.
Right.
And that was kind of hard because although we probably got pretty tired of telling the same story about, I live on this base here. But it was too long to get much communicated because we were totally separated about 2.5 years.
Jeez.
And it was a long time.
Oh boy, I can't imagine that.
Well, we couldn't either.
Yeah.
But we were so happy to get
we'll get to
reunited.
get to that story. Yeah, I'm anxious to hear that story when we get to it. But Well, one thing I've seen, and I've flown on a B-17. I've seen the individual plane. I can't imagine seeing a whole squadrons in the air, and when you linked up all this,
Thousands.
I can't imagine what that must have looked like.
Towards the last, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
We had them.
Wow.
Yeah.
What and so that would, I guess, lead up to the question: preparing for D-Day. Talk about approaching that, and when you found out about it, and everything surrounding that.
We knew they were building up in England troops starting about January *44, and we'd see. In fact, I didn't take any leave because, well, I took a little up in Norwich or something maybe, but I didn't go to London because it was so crowded. There were Americans everywhere.
Wow.
And so we knew it was coming. We didn't know when. And we knew it would be in the summer. And then we almost carefully, I think, because I just happened to write that little memo there, didn't do any tactical bombing, like bombing the beaches, because if we'd done that, we would have tipped off. So we did a little bombing into France, but it'd be like a Renault factory, or it'd be something like that, or it'd be in Germany. But when it came to D-Day, we knew it probably that evening. I don't recall.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we started to get our orders for a mission, and it's the only day we actually flew 3 missions. We normally flew a mission about every other day.
Wow.
And they were wanting to, get everybody over there. Well, the weather was just marginal, but it was all right. So we sent the first group out before daylight, really, and they bombed something. And they found out early on that heavy bomb wasn't the way to do tactical attack. They weren't that accurate. But that's what they were doing D-Day. So they went in and bombed some probably forest that were supposed to be Germans in there or something. And while they were gone, we put together a group of the rest of the airplanes and sent a mission out. And then the originals came back, and we bombed them up again and sent them out. But my recollection is that the fog had gotten so bad they brought the bombs back. They couldn't bomb. But we attempted 3. We actually flew 3 missions a day and bombed twice.
Wow. Now you talked about bombing them up. Was that your responsibility too, to armor the? Did that fall under your responsibility to armor the planes?
It wasn't my direct responsibility.
Okay.
There was an armored officer.
Okay.
But the airplane was mine.
Okay.
In fact, I'll go clear back and tell of one tragedy we had. Just at the start, I think, or second or third mission, our airplanes, fortunately, were living with this other group for a little training, and I didn't happen to be there, thank goodness. And the process then was they loaded, they put the fuses in the bombs on had a little bomb trailer that they came on. That you could back the trailer under the bomber, and then you put straps around each bomb, cranked it up by hand, put it in. Well, because it was easier to do, they were arming the bombs on the trailer.
Oh, boy.
And this was, yeah, and early, and this evening they were loading some bombs, and one of them slipped off it was a webbing, two webbing straps that were, and it wasn't supposed to go off, but it did, and we lost essentially 9 airplanes.
Oh.
And second or third mission in England, and it had and the old wind doesn't always, sometimes blows good, because I was assistant engineering officer in the 336, and they lost this bunch of mechanics, and there were some flight crews sitting around. A whole bunch of people got killed. 20 got killed and 20 were wounded roughly. But I got transferred I got my promotion of that disaster.
Right.
And I moved into Fort 12th and was there the rest of the war. But it was a tragedy, and luckily it never happened again. For one thing, they made the rule you don't put the fuses in till they're in the bomb bay and they're on the shackles. And then, even then, the fuses had a cotter pin in them, and after they got up and flying mission, Bombardier went back and pulled all those cotter pins and had to keep them. I think they had numbers on or something. And for instance, if they came back and hadn't bombed, he had to go back and put all the cotter pins in again. But that's a detail.
Wow. Well, I got to imagine there's a certain degree of danger on the base between just being around jet or aviation fuel. I mean, parts moving, bombs. It wasn't exactly it wasn't a cakewalk for you guys.
Not much. Yeah. Really, not much.
Oh.
Other places had more explosions and stuff. We only had after we got operating, we only had one airplane that took off and had an engine failure or something, and blew up at kind of the end of the runway, which killed the crew but didn't kill anybody else. So, but we were kind of fortunate.
Did you ever come under German attack either by plane or by V rockets? Any of that? Was that an issue?
The buzz bombs
or buzz bombs, yeah.
The Germans, I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. Actually, the first night we got to our base in England, a German plane came over and you could hear and it bombed somewhere near us, and we were kind of, that wasn't very good, but it wasn't even close, and they never bombed us, the Germans, until they got the first V1, which was the little rocket plane, and which they got a week or two after D-Day.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then the V2, which was the big rocket that came out of Europe, and you could see the little V1s, you could hear them pop, pop, pop. Although we didn't see many because they were aimed at London. I saw, I don't know, 2 or 3.
Wow.
They go by, and what you did, you hoped it'd keep running, because
that's when you worried when it
quit, it's coming down, and it did. It kept running. But the V2s, they started on, I think it was the 9th of September of '44, and there was no news about it for one thing, and about 2 weeks after, this would be about September 25th, say, we're sitting around our base, and suddenly off would have been the west about a mile was this huge explosion. So we jump in our Jeep and go over, and it's a little country road, and there's a big crater and a couple dead cows around. And my friend in the Jeep and I, curious young guys, I've got a picture of it somewhere. I climbed down in this crater, which is probably 15 feet deep.
Wow.
And he takes my picture, and I'm picking up little pieces of the, it wasn't anything, but there'd be a little piece of wire or a little aluminum or something. I got some somewhere here, I don't know where they are. Then here comes a British constabulary, and they shoo us over. They were present, but they didn't want us in there.
Yeah.
So we left, and the news came on that there'd been a gas explosion, and we knew better.
Yeah, right.
Because we had pieces of the darn thing with the swastika on.
Wow.
And those were bad.
Now, was that one probably meant for your base, do you think, and just overshot it?
No, I think it just went off.
Oh.
I think I don't, of course,
Yeah,
know,
right.
but they weren't that accurate to
okay.
even hit an air base, I don't think.
Okay.
They mostly went to London.
Okay.
So we saw them, but we didn't worry about them because they weren't our problem.
Yeah, yeah. Now it was known, that the air crews had X amount of, I think it went from 25 to 30 missions to
That's
go.
right. It went from 25 to 30 and then 30 to 35.
Now,
And
how
it
was
was a lot easier to make the 30 or 35 than it was the 25
in the
because
beginning?
they didn't have much of a chance.
Right.
And then later, most of them made their tour, not all of them.
What about the ground crews? Was there a specific amount of time, or were you just in for the duration of the war?
Duration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no way you were going home. We were a settled unit, and that was a good thing because you knew what you had, and we had the enlisted men that I had were aircraft mechanics. Generally, there were other specialties, and they were a little bit older and a little bit settled and got good at their jobs. You didn't have to worry about a thing hardly. They knew what to do, and it was a sort of a well-polished organization. Same thing over and over.
Did as the war progressed, did things get easier for you guys? And now that we had escorts and we kind of took over mastery of the skies, did that change the dynamics?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, that's what if I said the first we were there, say 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the first year we were losing bad, and the next year we were winning good. It kind of turned about the 1st of January 44, but before that they were just losing. And one of the big things they got was the P-51.
Right, the little buddies.
And it had the range.
Mm-hmm.
And our group, one thing it was famous for, our group and my squadron was the first American bombers to bomb Berlin.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was really an accident, but they didn't admit it. My squadron commander, Colonel Mumford, was leading the 3rd Bomb Division of the 8th Air Force that day, and they took off there, and they've been trying to bomb Berlin for a month, and they couldn't. So it'd be weather was real bad.
Yeah.
They couldn't bomb it, or something would happen. Well, they take off, and this is, I'm going to say, the 9th of March, but I don't know.
Yeah.
In that area, and they get over Holland, and they send them a recall because the weather was too bad. Or there's argument whether the recall went out. But
Okay.
anyway,
Uh-huh.
what happened was Colonel Mumford is leading the whole 3rd Air Division, which by then probably be 400 or 500 airplanes. And his radio operator said, Colonel, we got a recall, but it's in the wrong code. The Germans must be trying to turn us back. And the colonel said, well, we aren't turning back, we're going. And then a little later, the tail gunner says, Colonel, all the other groups are turning back. Colonel, and some were calling in the clear to Mumford, Colonel, there's been a recall. And he says, we're flying the mission. And so with 41 planes out of these 400, he goes in and bombs Berlin and comes back.
Wow.
And luckily there were some P-51s went with them, and they lost 4 or 5 airplanes, but they had bombed Berlin, and the reason they knew it was that the Germans announced that the Americans had tried to bomb Berlin but had been driven off. Well, they hadn't been driven off. But so here we sit, and he's my commanding officer, and all the other groups, they're flying. We could see there was an airfield every 5 miles.
Uh-huh.
Here they're all coming home. 95th isn't coming home. And the 100th was the other part group that was with him, and they were 5 miles north, and they weren't coming home either. What's happened? And suddenly, 2 groups appeared. One of them was the brass with the big stars on the license plate, and the other was the war correspondents, because they'd been listening to the German radio.
Wow.
And they said, and then they were smart enough to say, well, who's not home? Well, the 95th isn't home, and the 100th. So here they come, because somebody knew that we were leading. So here, my part of the perimeter track is just full of generals and war correspondents. And I'm not right there. I'm back over here a little way, because that isn't my turn.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the deal was. Anyway, they come back and land, and they got the problem. What are they going to do with Colonel Mumford? And they decided the best thing was to give him the Silver Star. And he got the Silver
Wow.
Star the first day they bombed Berlin.
Wow.
True as can be.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
absolutely the way it was.
Wow. Oh, just the morale boost from that. I mean, it's got to be like
Oh, yeah.
Doolittle's raid
well,
on
then
Tokyo.
the next week,
Yeah.
the weather cleared up, and they were bombing Berlin every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But and our group got a presidential citation
Uh-huh.
or something, and which made us the only group in the 8th Air Force that got 3. We got 3
Wow.
citations.
Uh,
That's
Yeah.
our big war story.
Right, right. Well, let's start progressing with your story. The war winds down, and finally there's VE Day.
Yeah.
Take your story from there now.
Oh, well, we were so happy VE Day. We just, I don't recall, I don't think I did because I didn't drink a lot, but I probably drank some. And everybody got drunk, shooting flare guns in the air and at each other. But it was a happy time.
Wow.
And we knew we were going home. We did a couple interesting things before we went home. One thing was that we actually, this was before VE Day. I should tell this.
Oh, please do. Yes.
It was I know it was a mission I got to go on. About a month before the war ended, which would be April of '45, the Dutch were starving.
Yes.
You remember, and they really were.
Right.
The Germans still held part of Holland, and it was too costly to get them out. They were going for Berlin, trying to get as far as they could before the Russians got there.
Yeah. Right.
And so the Americans made a deal with the German commander. We will come in. They kind of said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to come in low and drop food to the Dutch. We won't carry bombs, and don't shoot at us. We aren't going to shoot at you." And the German commander said, "That's great," because he kind of knew what was coming too. And so that day, in fact, this went on for 2 or 3 weeks. The British also dropped a lot of food. But this one I went on, we put plywood in the bottom of the bomb bay, stacked K rations and C rations until it was full, took off and flew at 150 feet
Wow.
into Holland. And I wish I could remember the town that we dropped at, but anyway, our target was they had a racetrack outside the town, and we dropped our food on the racetrack, and we could see the people waiting around, and they were starving, and it helped.
Wow.
And then later, I'll jump ahead because it's related. We were, and this was like in the late '90s. We were invited back to Holland, and they put on a week's celebration for us and took us around in coaches, and we'd go to some little town, and the mayor would be there, and we'd be getting all these adulations.
Oh, wonderful.
And, but it was a lot of fun. That was one of the trips back that we got a lot of them. But that was the mission, one of the good missions right at the end of the war. The other mission I went on was after the war was over. We went down into Linz, Austria, and hauled back 20 French prisoners. They'd been prisoners for 5 years, but they'd been working on farms. They were okay, except they were a ragged bunch. And we picked them up at the airport, flew them back, and I don't know which airport, but one of the big airports in France, and let them off, and were they a happy bunch of guys.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the good things.
Yeah. Then VE Day, May 8th. How much longer then were you over before you finally shipped home then?
Well, not long.
Oh, good.
We were lucky. In the 8th Air Force, they made, and it was general as far as I know in all the groups, they made the decision going to fly the airplanes back. Because we had the airplanes, we had gas, and so they flew 20 people in each airplane, and that way the ground crews. And it was roughly how long have you been, how
Yeah.
many, they had the deal, point system, you know. So I got to fly home in about the middle of June.
Oh, okay.
So the war had only been over a month.
Well, now, did you have any concern, or was there any thought of then transferring you on to the Pacific War? Because that was still raging.
Yes, that was, we were really unhappy campers because first we landed at Bradley Field, Connecticut. We flew from Greenland to Bradley
Oh,
Field,
wow.
wanted to get home.
Yeah.
And I arranged to, got a 30-day leave, arranged to meet the wife and all that. Then I'm assigned, and others, they broke our unit up. They just sent us all to a replacement.
Huh.
Yeah, what a, to me,
Yeah.
it wasn't the way to do it.
Yeah.
Give us
Well-oiled
new
machine.
B-29s, we'll learn to fix them, you know,
Yeah.
but we've got a unit.
Yeah.
So I'm up at Sioux Falls, and I knew how it worked. The guys that had the state's jobs were going to keep them. So we were raw meat to go to the Pacific, and unhappy.
Ugh.
But nothing you could do,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And I was home, and the wife came up to Sioux Falls, and I sneaked out every night to see her. And I'll tell you one little event. They weren't even very subtle about keeping you busy. One day, usually we just signed in, then went back home. Why I'm assigned to a bunch of guys, probably about a platoon of equally unhappy GIs, and we're going to police the area. These guys have been in combat 2-3 years, they're going to police the area. Well, so I figured out I got nothing to lose. So I called them to attention, and I marched them around behind the orderly room, halted them, and I said, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going back to town. And they scattered. And that's an absolutely true story. And then maybe a week later the war was over.
Oh, good.
So we would never have gotten
Yeah, right. But still, there was.
overseas, but
yeah.
it wasn't a very happy.
No. Oh, sure. Happy.
And but that gets me home.
Yeah. Well, back up then and talk about your reunion back with your wife and family. What that was like. I can't imagine what that must have been like.
It was fine, and I'm trying to remember. She was working in Kansas City, so I called. I got a phone call when we landed. We got a free phone call.
Okay.
The condemned man gets the last meal, and told her I was home. And first time I talked to her in 2.5 years. And it was about a week before I met her in Kansas City, and she had rented a nice room. I don't know if it was in the Mulebach Hotel, if you know Kansas City, big, nice. And that was our reunion, and she met me at the train, and I have kind of a vague remembrance of walking off the train up a corridor, and there she is. And oh boy.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a happy day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but I was so fortunate that I just should write it on every page, because I had about every break you could get. And for instance, I got home, and through somebody mentioning a job in Sioux City, I went and interviewed and got the job in October of '45.
Wow.
Before I was still getting paid by the Army, and it turned out to be a good job, and then other jobs later.
Hmm. Well, how was it for you? Did you have much of an adjustment after 2.5 years away from home and in the service? Was it much of an adjustment going back to civilian life for you at all? No? Oh, good. Good.
I tell people that I met the wife, for instance, in Kansas City, and after half an hour, it was like we hadn't been apart.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
And it really is true.
Yeah. Oh,
And
wonderful.
I can't describe,
Yeah.
other than we were close before, and it didn't evaporate.
Oh, wonderful. Good. Good. Good.
So it had no trouble adjusting. That isn't quite true. I was jumpy for about
Were
a
you?
month
Yeah.
or 2 months maybe.
Okay.
But
So, Chet, we took a quick break here, and I realized that as we were sitting here talking, that you talked about the two missions, the relief mission to Holland, and then to pick the mission to pick up the French prisoners in Austria. But you didn't mention your actual combat mission that you flew on. Tell that story.
yeah, well, we were called the ground echelon, and normally we didn't fly combat, but most of the officers wanted to get a little experience, and I was as foolish as the rest. So, I think I've got a date here.
June.
Yeah, 28th of March, the commanding officers gave me permission I could ride on one. It was down into France and wasn't supposed to be very difficult. And so I was sitting in the nose and on an ammunition box because there really weren't enough seats, but I was comfortable enough. And we flew, the target was a German airfield in Châteaudoun, France. This is before the invasion. And I guess this was one of the missions that might have been to help the invasion, but it wasn't close enough to the invasion beaches that it would give any intelligence to them. Anyway, we flew down over the channel and back down into France, and we saw the airfield. To me, it was off to our right, and there was another group ahead of us, and they turned and made a bomb run to the north over the field, and we were told there was not to be much flak, but I looked and I saw quite a bit of flak, and I thought I'd made the wrong decision because 2 airplanes went down ahead of us, and then it was our turn, and we flew over, and we were just about ready to drop our bombs when I heard a real bad bang, kind of, and the airplane jumped, and there were holes along the side of the nose with flak hole, what we called flak holes, but the engines ran, and we flew on, dropped the bombs, got home, and for a souvenir, why, I noticed when this flak hit us that it felt like I'd been hit. It kind of slapped my bottom, and I thought that was kind of an embarrassing place to get wounded, but so I didn't think too much about it till I got home on the base, and I lifted the lid of the ammunition box, and here is a piece of German flag.
Oh,
there it is. That's my souvenir.
Oh, man.
And it had hit. Luckily, the 50 caliber rounds were facing the way it came. There's the 50 caliber round it hit, and that's what bounced me out. it missed me by the thickness of the lid,
Oh, man.
and which shows I'm a lucky person. That's my combat story.
Wow. Well, I'm glad we captured that. What a story.
Well,
So let's move ahead now. Let's get into the post-war
okay.
segment of this. You got home and right away got a job in Sioux City.
I did, yes. I was district engineer for the Frigidaire Corporation for a while, and then became sales manager, or commercial sales manager. We built locker plants early on, all over Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, and it was a good business. And then about the time the locker plants dwindled down, we put one in about every little town. The air conditioning started up, and we sold air conditioning for another 10 years or so. And then I had an opportunity to, well, I'll go from there. I had an opportunity to go into an entirely different kind of job, a company that made livestock trailers. There you go, except the only thing, I was off the farm, so I knew livestock a little, but I didn't know trailers. But they hired me. They were, Wilson Trailer Company was a kind of a specialty organization, but they made livestock trailers, which were a little different. Fruhoff made them, but they weren't too good at it. And so Wilsons were kind of the leaders in that little niche industry. And I went to work for them as chief engineer, and then later became vice president, and it was a good job.
Wow.
And then through some changes, I moved to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where the American trailer people hired me. That's how I moved to Oklahoma. They were also in the livestock trailer business. We were the people that invented, when I was with Wilson, we invented what we called the pot-belly trailer. It had 2 layers of deck in the center and one on each end. And it was kind of intricate how you loaded it and unloaded it. But what it did was, if you bought one of those trailers, instead of 40 foot of deck and cattle, you had 60 foot. So you sold your one tractor, fired the driver, and you were hauling the same amount of cattle. And it was a good business. And then went to, as I said, went to American Trailer in Oklahoma City, and from there, by that time I was interested in, well, here's what happened. The American Trailer was owned by one old gentleman, nice gentleman, but he had no way of, his sons were essentially worthless, and he had no way to pass the business on. I didn't know it, and went to work one morning and he'd sold the business. And of course I knew what that meant.
Right.
So luckily I had some relations with Oklahoma University. I had a master's already. I was in my middle 40s. I knew you didn't do anything but manage McDonald's at that age, so I went back to school, did enough consulting work to keep us alive, got my Ph.D. in a little over 50 years old, and taught in the university for 20 years.
Really?
That's my career.
Huh.
And it was a good job. It
Yeah?
was fun. because they work a lot harder in industry than they do in university.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow, what a...
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about family now, and we'll slowly wind down this interview.
Okay. Well, my wife and I had a wonderful marriage, raised two boys.
Two boys.
One is a lawyer here in Greeley, Colorado. One is a dentist in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I'm very proud. So we just had a delightful family life, and just no tragedies or anything. So we had a good life.
Oh, wonderful. Grandchildren, great-grandchildren?
Oh gosh, yes. I have a great-granddaughter, I think 21, the oldest, and I have, there's one granddaughter and her kids in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I don't see them much because of it kind of out of the way.
Right.
And then I have a granddaughter here, which is my son's daughter, that has taken over the law practice, and she's a lawyer, and has two lady lawyers working for her, and a scattering of paralegals, and that has a reasonably large law firm. Another granddaughter down in near Denver does, and her husband both do political campaigns. It's quite a business, and it's a specialty kind of business, and they're good at it. More I'll tell you, well, I don't tell you, no. My son that's a dentist in Cedar Rapids, and his daughter, my granddaughter in Houston, she's a physician, and just saw them this last 2-3 days. So that's kind of the family.
So four grandchildren, four granddaughters?
Yes, 4 granddaughters and a grandson who is a dentist in Cedar Rapids.
Oh,
He's
okay.
taking over from his father.
Okay.
And the grandson had the record in Oklahoma City for the number of stolen bases. This is high school baseball in 15 years ago, 1 year.
Wow. And you
There you
mentioned
go.
earlier that the granddaughter was a state champion in golf.
She was the daughter that's the political consultant, was the Colorado State High School girls champion.
Wow.
She got a free ride to college.
Wow.
And she's a sweetie.
Yeah. Well, as we start to wind down this interview, one question I'd like to ask. You'd mentioned you traveled back to Europe and such. Have you kept in touch with some of the guys you'd served with, and have you gone to reunions and the such?
Yes, we were fortunate. We have gone to several reunions in the States, and they're okay. And then we were doubly fortunate to go back to the old air base.
Oh, wow.
At I think 3 times.
Okay.
And the British have an organization around there, and they put on a week celebration for us, and that was really great. And then we became kind of travelers, and we did Europe and particularly England. We went back and rented a house for a month and lived there, and rented a little mini car, and I kind of was an Anglophile after having lived there before.
Yeah.
But we have had some real nice trips back.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Chet, as we wind down this interview, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about, or any other stories that have kind of floated to the top as we've been sitting here talking to round out your story, I know we probably only got the tip of the iceberg, but or do you think we've primarily captured your story as you'd like to capture it?
Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Okay.
Sure, there are
Yeah.
stories that I could tell forever, but
Yeah.
I think we've covered the main items, going over and coming back.
Yeah. Well, the last question I always like to ask with these interviews, as you look back on that time in the service, in particular those 2.5 years away, did it change your life, play a role in your life, affect your life at all, or do you just simply look at it as a chapter in your life? How would you answer that?
Well, it changed you, of course, but I don't. I think it changed you in that we grew up.
Okay.
We were given immense responsibility at an early age, and managed it. And then, when I came back, why I had confidence. What, give me a job, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so. For me, and it certainly wasn't a traumatic 2 or 3 years
Yeah, right.
that I'd like to forget.
Right.
I was working hard, but I had the satisfaction I knew I was doing a good job because you got the record there.
Yeah.
And so all in all, I'm not one of these. And I understand the people that don't want to talk about the war, but well, possibly if I'd been in the trenches somewhere, why
Sure.
it'd be different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chet, I want to thank you for sitting down to tell your story today, but just as important, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you. I've obviously enjoyed it.
Good.
That's a picture of me standing in my among my B-17s in 1944, and there's a picture of a house in the background that you'll see in some other pictures.
Okay. And then we move over next.
Now that's a picture of 1974, of a first trip back to England, and it's just approximately standing in the same place.
Wow. Okay. Now we're at
Same place again, 1992. The house is more visible, and the farmer in that owns that house later became a friend, and we would stay in his farmhouse on our trips. And there's a trip back in 92. That's probably the last trip. I don't know.
99, 92.
99?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm reading up.
Yeah.
92, yeah. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
That's a picture of me standing under the front of a B-17, probably 1943.
Down to your medals.
The left-hand medal is a Bronze Star, and I don't recall the others.
Okay. And what was the story behind your Bronze Star?
Well, they gave them
For your performance?
people with a good performance, I guess would be the best way to say it.
Keeping those birds in the air. And then moving over to, here's the interesting part.
Yeah, okay, there's a piece, this is a piece of German flak that hit a box on which I was sitting and missed me by an inch, thank goodness. And this is a 50 caliber projectile from that 50 caliber box.
Wow.
And it has a scar on it where the flak hit it. That's a picture of a B-17. Actually, it's an early one, a B-17E, and I was in a B-17 outfit throughout World War II. You're looking at a painting actually of a standard J-1 World War I training aircraft, and it's one that I kept searching for after the war. I wanted a World War I aircraft and found several, but due to some other things that I'll mention later, why I never got one flying.
So you would renovate?
Yeah, I restored a
Restored? Is that right? Yeah.
dozen old biplanes and
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
The wife and I are in the center of our home in Norman, Oklahoma, the front porch, and there's the two boys and their wives and children, probably 20 years ago.
Very nice.